Now, let's say we have the following scenario. You have an app and the user is on a free plan. Okay, so they have not upgraded, they have not paid for anything. They're using your app and they're on a 100% free plan. And so the app knows that the user has not paid yet. And so you can show them this message. And also, if you come over here, you can kind of see more information about the user, or the user can kind of see what's happening. And they can see that they are not on the paid plan. Okay, so they're not on the paid plan. And as a result, the app can show them various messages. Now, let's say the user goes ahead and pays for the app. Okay, so they go somewhere, they send the money. How can this app become notified right away that the user has paid and show them different information, different things, maybe show them some of the benefits, show them some of the extra features that they wanted to pay for? Well, that is actually very, very doable. And so first, let me show you how this app reacts to a user paying. And so let me go ahead and jump into my test Stripe account. So here I have a test Stripe account, and this is a payment link that connected to my Stripe account. So if I make a payment here, my Stripe account will know that, I paid X amount, this amount, and it can react. Okay, so let me go ahead and make a quick fake payment here, and let's see what happens to our app. Let's see how our app reacts in real time. All right, so I went ahead and I filled out this payment form with some fake data. And this is something that Stripe tells you to fill out, basically, right? They give you this, fake credit card information that works for testing things, okay? And so let's say I click on pay, and let's see what happens to our app. Will our app change? Will something happen? Okay, so let me go ahead and put my app here, and here I'm gonna pay. So I'm gonna click on pay. It's processing now, and now it says thanks for payment. Let's take a look at what's happening with the app. Okay, so we get a push notification, payment succeeded, plan upgraded, and our app has immediately reacted, right? Our app has reacted. Now we're on a paid plan, and it's telling us, congrats, you're on the paid plan. You now have access to all the goodies here. And if I click here, guess what? I'm going to be seeing that I'm on a paid plan. This is now true. And this happened instantly. This happened as soon as I made a payment. Okay, I don't need to, reload the app. I don't need to refresh any of the screens. I don't need to do anything. This happened automatically. And how did we make it work? Well, we actually made it work using an amazing tool called BuildShip that does so many awesome things that everything that I've talked about so far was just merely scratching the surface. Okay, there's so many amazing things that we can do. And one of them is changing the behavior of your app depending on various events, on various things that are happening. And I have a bunch of scenarios here that I'm going to be showing to you guys in this video. The first one was this payment scenario. And you got to agree, this is something that you're going to be implementing in your apps, right? You might have payment plans, you might have subscription plans. And as soon as the user pays, you want the app to react. And this is exactly what we've just accomplished thanks to BuildShip and this workflow that we build. Okay, so this is this workflow here. This is this payment workflow. And the first thing that we did here is we have something called a webhook, okay? So when you think about BuildShip, BuildShip is an amazing integration tool where you're creating workflows, okay? And workflows are built with nodes, okay? So this is one workflow, and we have 3 nodes here. And when you're building workflows, they all follow the same structure. You always start out with a trigger, okay? So in this case, we are using a Stripe webhook that has my test secret key. So anytime I do something with my, Stripe test mode account, this thing reacts, right? So I specified my test secret key, so it will know exactly anytime something happens with my test account, it will react. This trigger will fire, right? This trigger will trigger. And here I can select the events. Now in this case, I'm only interested in like charge captured and charge succeeded. Really, charge succeeded is really what I'm interested in, right? And as soon as a charge has been succeeded, this whole workflow will be triggered. And guess what the next node is here? Well, the next node is a push notification. Okay, this is one of the nodes that you can use. And so if you click here, you can search for push notification, right? You can type here and you're going to see this is FlutterFlow push notification here, right? And because we have built an app using FlutterFlow, we are using this node here, FlutterFlow push notification. And the way this works is that you essentially configure it to push notifications, right? And so you need to specify a project ID, and this is going to be the same project that you have connected to your FlutterFlow apps. Now, remember, with push notifications, you have to connect your FlutterFlow app to a Firebase account, right? It needs all the resources. It needs various resources that come with your Firebase account, namely things like Firebase cloud messaging, as well as access to your Firebase store so that it can trigger those push notifications. So this needs to be the exact same project ID that you've connected your FlutterFlow app to. And the rest of the fields are pretty much self-explanatory, right? So we have the title, we have the message. You can also specify the image URL if you want. Here you have, notification setting. I just left it on default. Target audience, you can send it to iOS, Android. I just have it set to all. You can also specify the initial page. So if the user is somewhere else, you can also specify, if they click on that notification, which page are they going to be redirected to. Here I'm specifying the user. I am specifying a direct document link here, right? In production, you definitely want to look up the actual user who paid for the actual app, because once the user has paid, you're going to get the user's email. And so you can look up the user via their email in order to get their user reference. That's very, very simple. All you need to do is come in here and you can just search for Firestore. And here you can simply use collection query, and you can query for the email that you get from Stripe in order to find the user reference here. And last but not least, I have some custom parameters, right? These are parameter data, and these can be anything that you want. In this case, I'm just saying that type is the payment status. And that way, FlutterFlow will know what we're dealing with here, right? It will know which page to refresh and what kind of data to show, right? And last but not least, here we have a return node. Now, the last node is always going to be a return node where you're going to be returning something. And in this case, it's not that important, but this is still good practice in situations where you're not going to have a Stripe webhook, but where you're going to have some kind of a normal REST API, like I'm going to show you in a little bit. And so as a result, this creates a really, really nice workflow that not only notifies the user of some event, so essentially tells the user, hey, we've got your payment. Your payment has been successfully processed. Thank you so much for signing up. But most importantly, we are essentially refreshing the app and changing what the user is seeing. And so if we come back here, now they're seeing here, right? And so they can click around, and no matter what they do, they're still seeing the screen here. Now, obviously, we can have another webhook later on where, if the user's subscription has ended, we are going to notify them and change their status back to free plan, once the subscription has ended. Another thing that we can do is if the user has decided to upgrade, we can show them something. Hey, we noticed that you've decided to upgrade. So, now you're on this other plan, right? You're on this, professional or enterprise plan, right? But this is a really, really nice flow because the user is not doing anything, right? We're not asking the user to click anywhere. We're not asking the user to refresh anything. This is done absolutely automatically. And a little bit later, I'm going to be showing you how I've implemented this with FlutterFlow. But really, the star of the show is this BuildShip workflow. Now, let me show you another really powerful and also very, very practical piece of functionality that you may want to implement in one of your future apps, or maybe this is something that you're working on right now. And so if I click here, you're seeing a page that says email client demo. And this is exactly what it says. This is actually a mini email client. Okay, so right now it displays emails that it has received. So it's basically dealing with incoming emails. Okay, And so right here, we have just some 3 sample emails, and these emails are stored in our Supabase database. And so if you send an email to a specific email account, this thing will automatically receive an email and display it. So let me show you exactly how this works. And so if I send an email to James at email this domain, and let's say for the subject, I put BuildShip test subject, and for the body, I put BuildShip test body, okay? And when I press send, it should automatically be reflected here, and I should automatically get a push notification. So let's go ahead and do that right now. And let's see what happens here. And there it is. It says here, BuildShip test subject and BuildShip test body. And if we close it, we see the message being displayed automatically. So we did not interact with this app at all. We got a push notification message. We read it. It closed, or we closed it ourselves. It doesn't really matter. And we see the message automatically. And this is amazing workflow, right? This is an amazing flow because we're not doing anything, right? It's just like with Gmail. You know, when we get an email, we don't need to refresh. We don't need to ask it, do we have any emails? It displays automatically. And so how is this implemented? Well, if we jump back into BuildShip, we have a flow that we have created to do just that. Now, the first thing that we're doing in this flow is we have a different trigger, right? So in the previous flow, we had a Stripe trigger, right? So anytime that, Stripe had events on our test account, in this case, that trigger was executed, right? It essentially triggered the trigger. But in this case, we are using one of the more general triggers, and this is a REST API call. And the purpose of this trigger is it waits for requests on this URL. So if you click here, you see this URL here. And so if you send something to this URL, it will get triggered and it's going to start processing it. Now, you may have noticed that I'm sending an email to a specific email address, and we're seeing it here, right? So how is this happening? Well, there are lots and lots of services, right? Third-party services that allow you to take a domain name and connect it using an API. And so you can configure like a domain name. So I can take like something like jamesnocode.com or another domain that I own or a domain that I'm looking to buy, and I can connect it to one of these third-party services. And this third-party service is going to be receiving emails and then connecting to this API. And in fact, the service that I'm using to do just that, to receive emails and then post them to my webhook, is called Postmark App. And you can learn more about it on postmarkapp.com. There's lots and lots of services. And here what I did was I configured an inbound stream. And as a result, now all the incoming emails are coming to this webhook here, right? And so this webhook gets triggered. And so what are we doing after we receive an email? Well, the first thing that we're doing is we're saving them into Supabase, right? So here I have a BuildShip node called Create Row, and you can simply click here and you can search for Create Row, and you're going to see this Supabase category here, and you're going to see Create Row. Now you can also type Supabase and you can see all the different Supabase nodes, all the different things that you can do with your Supabase database. But in this example, we're using this node here. And so for this node, you have to configure it, right? So you have to configure it with your API key, API URL, and the table name. And last but not least, the actual data, right? And so for the actual data, I'm passing in subject, which is this subject here, body, which is this body here. And if you click here, you can actually find it, right? So we can go into request, we can go into body, and we have subject and body. And this is the email subject and the email's body that's being passed to us via that third-party service to our REST API webhook here, okay? And so once we have this, this node gets executed. And if we jump into our Supabase database, you can see that I have this emails table here, and I have 4 records representing 4 emails. Now, once this email has been created in this database, we're not done yet, right? We need to actually notify the app that there's a new email. We need to actually tell the user, hey, there is a new email available, and we also need to make it visible, right? We need to refresh that page so that they see that new email. And this is taken care of by this push notification, right? So here we have this push notification. And in this case, we are customizing it a little bit. So for the title, we're passing in the subject that was, parsed in that first node. And for the message, we're passing in the body that was also parsed in that first node. We're not passing in the image. This is all the same. Here we have a route, and this is a FlutterFlow route that we make available. So in case the user wants to click on the push notification, or maybe they don't have the app running, they can click on the push notification, and this is going to go to that route so they can see all their emails. And I'm also passing in my own user reference directly here as well. Of course, once again, you can parse the to field of the email, find the actual user, and send it to that specific user. That is all very, very simple. You can simply use something like one of the Supabase nodes to do it. So here we have Supabase. You can just do get row with token, or just get row. And here you can just select this get row here and configure it, and you can create a filter. And so what you want to do here is you want to look up the user via the to field in the email and get their information, get the specific token that you're looking for, whether this is a specific user reference or the specific token that we're dealing with, and then you'll be able to send it to that specific user. Okay. And last but not least, I have some custom parameters here. I'm saying type is email status. Okay, I'm basically letting the app know that we're dealing with emails now, right? Because before we were dealing with payments. Now I'm letting it know that we're dealing with emails. And last but not least, I have a regular return node that doesn't really respond with anything. And that is because we don't really need to respond with anything to this caller here. Remember, the user is not the caller, right? We are being triggered by a third-party email parsing service, right? This incoming email parsing service. And so in this case, we don't really need to reply with anything to that specific email parsing service. The most important thing here is this push notification, where we notify the user that we have a new email, and also update the screen so that they see that new email in the list of their existing emails. So as a result, you have really, really clean flow. And if I would have sent another email, the user would get another push notification, and they will immediately see another email on the screen here that will automatically update without the user needing to do anything in the first place. Last but not least, I want to show you another example of really, really powerful and very, very practical functionality that you can implement to do pretty much anything that you want. Okay, so on this page, we have a URL converter demo. And the idea here is that you're going to be providing a URL of a website. And when you click on convert, the system is going to fetch the website, just that front page of the website, and convert it into a PDF. Okay, and so if there's some URL, if there's some website that you like and you want to save it as a PDF, well, this is the tool that will do it for you. And so let's say I go ahead and enter one of my favorite websites, and this is macrumors.com. Okay, and I press convert. So right away it tells me processing. Now, one thing that you guys need to understand here is this is very, very different than a regular API call. We are not locked on this page. Yeah, we can sit here and wait, or I can click on one of the other pages, right? We are going to get notified when it finished processing, right? So I can click here, I can check my emails, and our task is still running in the background. We're going to get notified when it finishes. And also we're going to be able to kind of interact with the result. Okay. So I'm checking my emails, I'm seeing what's happening, and we get a message. Conversion finished. Okay. So now I can go back here, and guess what I see? I see the result, right? Because it was executing in the background. It was executing asynchronously. Okay, that's the first thing that you need to understand. Now, if we go ahead and open this URL here, we are going to have a PDF of Mac Rumors, right? So here's Mac Rumors here. And this is a PDF of the website. Now, how does this work behind the scenes? Well, I also created a workflow that does all of this and more. So if we click over here, we have here a workflow. And so this workflow here uses a REST API call. We have here convert URL, which is the input here that we need to specify the website. And I have a log message, which is not required. And I have this node called URL to PDF. Okay, so you give it a URL and it will generate a PDF. And after it generates a PDF, this is the file path. And after that, I use another node called generate a publicly accessible download URL. And so if you give it a file that's located on some server, it will generate a publicly accessible URL for that piece of content, for this file here. And last but not least, we have a push notification once again. So we say conversion finished. We provide the actual, the URL here in this message field here. We're not really, specifying the image URL. Everything else is on default. We're also specifying the initial page as well. So if the user is somewhere else, they can click on the notification and be redirected to that page. And I'm also specifying myself here again, just like, in the previous scenarios. And last but not least, we have a parameter data here. And in this case, this is type convert status. Okay, so this is another one, right? So for each of these workflows, we have a unique type here, because on FlutterFlow's end, we need to know what's happening, right? We need to know what the push notification is all about. And that is important in this case, because in this case, I have three different things happening, right? If you're building an app that does one thing, chances are you don't really need to divide it into different statuses, although you still may use different statuses depending on your specific app requirement. But I have different demos here, so I definitely need to be sending different statuses. And last but not least, we have a return node here that sends the download URL. But this is not something we need to do, because we are notifying the user via this push notification. Okay, so once again, we have been able to provide very powerful, but also, very practical functionality. And another thing that we're doing here that we have never done before is that we are creating an asynchronous request, right? So if I jump back into FlutterFlow, just to quickly show you how this is done here, right? So this is this last page here, right? So we have a bunch of statuses depending on if the task has been started or not. We're displaying different things. But if I click here and I open this and I open this here, we have this backend call and I'm saying it's non-blocking, right? So you cannot do that unless you're following the same structure as I am, right? Because if you say non-blocking, you won't be able to capture output, right? Because here we're not capturing output, right? Typically in this in an API call, you're going to be capturing output, right? So we have this output here, but as you can see, I don't really care about the output, because I'm going to be getting the output via a push notification, right? I'm going to be getting an output via this, right? Typically, you're going to be getting an output, you're going to be looking at this field here, right, in a normal scenario. But because this is non-blocking, I don't really care about this. I know the system is going to notify me using a push notification. And just like how we did it in the previous video, if you have not yet seen the previous video where I had like a full-blown tutorial on push notification, then definitely go ahead and watch the previous video. You're going to be seeing right there. But an important part that I talked about in the previous video is something called initialization, right? I have this initialized messaging here in this main Dart, right? In this custom files, in this custom code area, and I'm setting it as a final action, this initialized messaging. And if we jump here into initialized messaging, this is a custom action. And the job of this initialized messaging, right? The kind of what it's here for is to catch those notifications that we are getting from BuildShip, right? So if I scroll down, you can see that we have payment status, we have email status, we have convert status. And all I'm doing is I'm basically changing some of the app state variables, okay? And if you're a member of our amazing Patreon community, you're gonna get access to this app so that you can see exactly how everything works. And so the code here is basically getting all those push notifications and reflecting the app based on the status here. But really the star of the show is BuildShip, okay? Because with BuildShip, I can do amazing things, right? I can parse incoming emails, right? I can parse incoming emails via this REST API call. I can capture payment events, right? This is something that I wanted to do for a long time. I always wondered, well, if I'm building an app and, the user just, is interacting with the app, and then, let's say a couple of minutes later, they or maybe somebody else pays for a plan, how will the app reflect it, right? I don't want the user log out and log in. I want the whole experience to be, seamless. And that is exactly what we have accomplished here, thanks to this BuildShip workflow, thanks to the Stripe webhook, as well as this push notification, okay? And last but not least, we have some, icing on the cake, where we have a, kind of this background asynchronous task that happens, regardless of whether the user is on that page or not, they can be somewhere else. They're going to get the results as a push notification, right? They're going to get the result as this right here. So we don't need to wait for that, for that API to finish. We don't need to look at the results. We can make it non-blocking, which means that the app is not going to block, which means that the user is free to do anything that they want. And in fact, I really, really like this flow. I really, really like this methodology. And in fact, this is something that I plan to leverage and kind of build apps around in the future, because, it's a lot nicer to have a notification kind of pop up and tell the user, hey, this has finished, or, your plan has been upgraded, or maybe, somebody purchased something or somebody did something, and have the app automatically reflect that. I think that's really, really nice flow. And when it comes to things like email clients and other kind of real-time kind of reactive apps, there's really no other way of doing it. At least I don't know any other way of doing it except creating like a workflow and have these push notifications delivered to our users and have the app reflect this new state. Now, you can learn more about BuildShip by going to buildship.app and kind of learning more about this amazing tool. You can do so many amazing things with this tool, and this is just one of the many powerful but also practical uses of this tool. And if you're a member of our amazing Patreon community, I'm going to be making all of these workflows available. I'm going to be basically showing you exactly what you're seeing here, so that you can create these same or similar workflows depending on your specific application use case. And I'm also going to be making available my FlutterFlow app as well. And so if you're a member of our amazing Patreon community, you'll be getting all of these workflows as well as my app, where you'll be able to view and or clone my app. And that way you can see exactly how I've implemented both sides of these amazing flows. And I am sure that you'll find some use for these amazing flows, maybe in the app that you're building right now, or maybe in an app that you're planning to build in the future. Because you got to admit, there's not a lot of ways to achieve what I was able to achieve in today's video. Plus, as a member of our amazing Patreon community, you're going to get access to all the apps, which means you'll be able to view and or clone pretty much any of the app that I have built on this channel over the years. And I think there's more than 160 or 165 apps that are available to view and or clone on our amazing Patreon community. And that's not all. When you join our amazing Patreon community, you're going to get access to extra content. So things like Q&As, live streams, behind the scenes content, as well as our masterclass series, where I do deep dives on specific topics, tools, apps, you name it, that the community votes on. And in fact, I did a deep dive on BuildShip. I think that was like a couple of months back. And I'm going to be doing another masterclass deep dive on push notifications. That's going to be coming out in the near future. And so if you're interested in getting access to all of these amazing things, all the apps, all the content, the workflows, etc., essentially If you're somebody who is serious about no code, then you definitely need to be a member of our amazing Patreon community. And above all, when you become a member, you're going to be supporting this channel and supporting my work. And that really, really means a lot to me. And it really motivates me to create these videos, tutorials for you guys. And so if you're looking to up your no code knowledge, then definitely check out our amazing Patreon community and consider becoming a member.